handle more business.
Well, welcome to the 6th episode of MPC's Handle More Business series. This month, we're going to talk about warehouse company website creation and management. One of the things that we've found after building so many websites for material handling and warehouse companies is there's a lot of stakeholders involved in warehouse and material handling companies, and a lot of times there's not always a very sophisticated built out marketing department. So if you're having a president or a VP be the lead of the marketing seat and hire an agency to support the site build, it's a little different than a large company that has a really deep marketing department. So we want to show how to have the steps to manage expectations and delivery and timeline, no matter who's involved. So I have Nick Macedo, MPC's creative director, with me today. And it's our goal to give you real actionable items to use to build a site for any material handling or warehouse company that you're working with, and give you some of the tips and tricks we've learned over the last 15 years. So I'll start it off with kind of giving a little background on some of the sites that Nick has worked on with MPC for material handling companies. Looking back, we've developed sites with Nick and the MPC team over the last 15 years for Hannibal Industries, Twin Load, Nucor Warehouse Systems, Baker Industrial Supply, Metal System, ITC Manufacturing, and many more. Regardless of if the company's targeting B2B or B2C or both with direct sales, it's almost like a company doesn't exist today if they don't have a good digital presence. And the foundation of that digital presence is a website. So I guess I'll start it off with a question for Nick and kind of a discussion. But what are the steps that MPC takes to ensure that the website needs of a company we're building a site for or proposing a site for are met?
Sure. Well, I think I think true of any industry and any website you're building, regardless if it's for material handling, one of the most important things that any company can do is work with a team of experts. People who know your industry. It's easy to find web developers or even teams of web developers, but finding a team that knows where you're coming from and the ins and outs of your business and your audience, I think, is probably the most important. And so for us here at MPC, I think the work starts before we ever know about the client or before we ever know about the job, and that's just getting plugged into the material handling industry. And we know it in, we know it out, and we know it at every level, not just creatively, but when it comes to directing accounts, when it comes to PR. And I think that really starts to permeate throughout the creative process. So by the time that we actually are ready to break ground on a website, we've already done our due diligence when it comes to the client and when it comes to the industry and when it comes to their audience. But I think what that looks like for us usually starts with a discovery conversation. We always say that nobody knows their audience better than our clients, right? So our clients are going to be the window into who they're trying to reach, what they're trying to reach them with, and at least for I think what we feel here is that it's our job then to facilitate the bridge, right? The client knows their audience, but how do we use this website and develop a website to sort of reach that audience? And so we're plugged into not only the look and feel of the client, if they have brand guidelines, or helping them develop those brand guidelines if they do not already have them in place, which sometimes happens, but then also then being able to sort of synthesize that into a process for the actual web development based on the conversations that we're having with our client.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I want to kind of hit our key points of what the steps are from concept to completion, and then I guess go into some of the details there. So I'll list them out real quick, and then we could talk through some of the details and the sign-offs. But the first thing that we always do is competitive research. Second is analyze and strategize. Third is a sitemap. Fourth is provide recommendations. Fifth is the actual site development. And sixth is the launch. There's two main steps where we get client sign-off before anything goes further. And that would be helpful whether you're in-house with the company building the site for yourself, or you're an outside agency like we are, to be sure that all expectations are aligned before any further development goes. Could you kind of talk through those approval steps, Nick?
Yeah. So for the approval step, there's sort of a there's really a handful of them, right? So the first and foremost, what we're doing is after that sort of discovery phase that we just talked about, we'll put together a site map and also a timeline. We want to make sure before we're really breaking ground on this project from a creative standpoint and actually starting to push pixels and move things around and design. We want to make sure that one, we have a roadmap, which is that site map that we talked about, and that's really just a list of all the pages. And a lot of times it gives indication of how those pages are nested underneath one another. And so you've probably seen them, but there are these webs that they home, and then it'll have the list of pages and then the pages that fall under that, and it's very much nested the same way that a normal website navigation would be. And then secondly, we look at a timeline. We want to make sure that we're meeting the client's goals, and we want to make sure that we're meeting the whatever deadlines they may have in place. Now, not all websites have a deadline, and so on those, sometimes we do have elongated timelines where we're able to collaborate with the client a little bit more and have a little bit more breathing room. And other times, there's a need for more urgency. I mean, we've developed websites even under our crisis communication protocols, and as a part of that strategy, when we've had well-known clients that have found themselves in crisis and needed a new website that was able to be built, quickly launched. And so that's obviously a much shorter timeline. But a lot of times that timeline is sort of the rudder that steers the ship, if you will. And I think the site map is really the map or direction moving forward at its most bare bones. And so we'll get signatures on both of those things to make sure that we're in line with the client before we start moving along. And then additionally, from there, we have different sorts of milestones. And so one of the things we do when we first start to design is we'll design a PDF homepage. It's a proof, and it kind of acts as the visual rudder. I know I just used that metaphor recently, but the visual rudder for how the rest of the website will look. And we like to get the client buy-in on that. When we're first starting out, because that very much will determine how some of the nuances and the aesthetics of the rest of the website will look, whether it's a 5-page website or a 50-page website, or upward and onward. And so having client buy-in on that, and having the chance for our clients to be able to see that and say, this looks good, keep going, or this isn't quite what we were looking for, let's take a step back, revise, which is a super normal part of the process, but we want to make sure that we're getting it right before we build an entire website, because it just ensures client satisfaction on the back end. And then the last really approval, I would say, is once we're last definitive approval anyway, is once we've built the site, once we've gone through it, once we've done all the revisions, then we're able to sign off, get the client sign off on that last step, which is this site is good for launch, and we get it live.
Right. And the way that we get those signatures now, we do it digitally, which makes it a lot smoother process for us as an agency. For anyone listening, we use teamwork signatures for approvals midway through and get it right on there. Or we also have better proposals as another option. So it really depends on if it's a long-term client, then it's basically in teamwork as this bigger project. If it's a one-off web project, we use better proposals, which is really simple for them to click through and sign and have digital signature. So that keeps everything super clear. We kind of explain it now as almost like building a house or a building, where if you get too far down the process and decide to change it, change the sitemap, change the direction, you really have done half the work already. So imagine having the frame of a house up and all the rooms laid out, and then deciding to change the complete layout or look, just doubles or triples the work. So when clients understand that, it makes it a lot easier for them to make sure they have all stakeholders, whether it's executive, marketing, or board members even, to have a look at this sitemap before that is confirmed and approved. Oh, that that basically like sums it up. But by doing that process, we're able to deliver sites on time and on budget that meet clients' needs. And we can add so many things, whether it's like a very simple site or whether it even has like user portals or Shopify digital store or any of those things. We're able to do and offer different platforms for to meet the different clients' needs. So, any other thoughts, Nick, or does that kind of sum it up?
No, I think that sounds great. I think that's kind of an insight into our process, and I think I would just say add on, I guess, that any client who's looking for a material handling website to be developed, whether they're working with MPC or they were going to work with anybody else. It's most important, I think, to make sure they have experience, make sure they have a proven process that has been gone through, and make sure that as the client, you understand where you're expected to and allowed to be a part of the process. Everybody's process is going to be different, and I think every client also has different desires. Some clients want to be hands off. Build me a website, let me know when it's done. Other clients say, how often are we going to meet? When can we meet? We want to be involved. And there's all kinds of clients that are in between. And so making sure that you have a company, that you're working with a web development company or an agency that is having you involved at the level that you're comfortable with. I think those are kind of the three keys, and those are kind of the things that we've built our process on, and that I think are really applicable regardless of who you're working with. And that's that experience, that process, and that involvement.
Thanks, Nick. It's really cool to have MPC's creative director join me for this month's Handle More Business. I'm, of course, MPC's founder and president, and we're really committed to rolling out and launching a new Handle More Business episode every third Thursday. And the whole goal is to share tips and insights for material handling marketing leaders on how they can improve and stay on the cutting edge of marketing for this evolving industry.
Handle more business.